Hi, welcome to this video. I've noticed that my box of stash is getting a little full, so I just wanted to go through the box, see what projects I need to do, and see if we can go about getting this box emptied before the end of the year. So I'm just going to remove this bag to start with, and we'll talk about this bag at the end. So most of these yarns were bought with a purpose. So starting with this grey yarn, this is Sidar No1. It's a DK yarn. It's 50% acrylic and 50% nylon, and it is so soft. So I've started a project with this. It's based on the framework raglan by Jessie Made Designs. However, I am doing a spiral rib design on the front. So I've got 4 balls in stash for this and 1 ball that I've currently started. The project is hibernating at the moment, just because I didn't want to work on a sweater during summer. So that's what these 4 will hopefully be towards. And the next yarn is this yarn here, which is Baby Lux DK. It's 60% bamboo, 40% polyamide, and there's actually only 70 grams of this because I did have to break into this ball on a project I was making. So with this yarn, I made the framework raglan by Jessie Made Designs. That was my first version of the pattern, and it did come out a little shorter than I intended. I think if the top was a bit more fitting, I wouldn't feel as self-conscious, but I feel because it's quite loose and short, I feel like everyone can like look up my top, which I don't like that feeling. So, and because I did this decorative design on the bottom, what I think I might do is some sweater surgery and cut off the bottom, and then maybe use the rest of this yarn to lengthen the sweater, but maybe also add a little bit of tapering. I haven't decided how much effort I want to put into this. Would I recommend this yarn? No, I don't think so, and I'm not going to buy it again. Just because after I washed it once, I felt like the top looked like it was a year old. It started getting a little fuzzy. I haven't had any pilling yet, but I do just think that it shouldn't look like that after being washed once, and I'm not sure what the longevity of this yarn is going to be like. Okay, so moving on, I have 4 balls left of Drops Belle, and this is my first time using Drops Belle, but it is quite a common yarn. It is 53% cotton, 33% viscose, and 14% linen, and this is the colour, doesn't say, but it's green. And I found this quite hard to work with. I did find this yarn a little splitty, but I don't mind having to pay attention to my knitting. I'm not one to knit and walk or anything like that, so it did come together quite nice. So this is the project that I'm currently working on with this yarn. I have 4 balls left to add sleeves, which I think is going to be more than enough. So then I'll probably have some balls left over to try and think of something that I need to do with them. So if anyone has any ideas of what they've done with Drops Belle that would only take 100 or so grams, please comment below. And the next yarn I have here is King Cole Finesse, which is a cotton and silk DK yarn. This yarn I really liked working with. It's really soft. It was nice to work with. I think having that combination of plant fibre and animal fibre is really nice. So I've hung on to this just because this was my first time ever making a summer knit, and I made this top. Can't remember what it's called. It's a sleeveless top. I'll put the name on the screen. And I just wasn't sure how much wear I would get out of a top without sleeves. So I've kept a hold of this yarn just so that if I want to add sleeves to it, I can. However, it might be a little bit too long on me now. and it's also a little bit tight on the hips. So this pattern does offer some hip shaping, but I'm not sure it was enough for me, so I might rip back the bottom of this, and I don't know whether to do a split hem or whether to add more increases. But either way, I've got some yarn left over for what I decide to do. And then the next yarn I have are these 3 balls of Cygnet Deluxe Aran. So these were relatively cheap. So this is 100% superior acrylic. I don't know what makes it superior. It just feels like acrylic. And with this, I'm going to make a black cardigan on the Centro knitting machine. So that's going to be an upcoming project, but again, it's not something I'm going to knit in the summer, but it'll definitely be done before the end of the year, and I'm hoping this will be enough for that, but if not, I can always buy more. And then from the same line, I have the Cygnet Aran in a red colour, and my plans for this was to make, is it the Ribblestone or the Ribblesdale vest? I'll put the name on the screen. And I was really excited for the project. However, I did make a grey version first, and I'm just not sure it's for me, that it suits my body type. So I'll see. I don't really know what to do with this, whether I try a different style of waistcoat. What do you think? What would you guys do with these 2 balls of yarn? I don't think it's enough to make a sweater, but I think it would be enough to make a vest or a t-shirt, but it's 100% acrylic, so it would be warm. Yeah, let me know what you would do with these 2 balls of yarn. Okay, and now we're at the bottom of the bucket, and I've got quite a few of just 1 ball. So this year I did a testing out lots of different yarns on the Centro knitting machine, so I'm trying to sort of move away from acrylic. I'm just finding it too warm to wear, so I wanted to try some different types of yarn, so I bought a nice range. So I've got, I'll leave that link, I'll link to that video, so if you want to go and watch what all of these yarns are and how they handle on the machine. So what I was thinking for doing with all 8 of these was to do a sort of scrappy sweater, but I seen this picture on Pinterest, a couple of different versions of it, and I thought it looked quite nice. And if I zoom in here, you can see that it looks like it has different weights of yarn, there's different shades, different colors, and I quite liked that sort of scrappy look without it looking scrappy. So I'm going to see if I can make something like that, because I think a lot of these yarns, they will look nice together. I did try and get the same sort of color scheme. All right, so any long-term viewers of my channel will be familiar with this yarn. So this is an ombre Aran weight yarn. I've got 41 grams left, and this I use to make a lace sweater, which is one of my favorite things I've ever made. So I don't quite know what to do with the scraps of this. I have been looking at some colorwork projects, maybe with where you use this as the contrast color. I'll pop some pictures on the screen of things that I've seen where others have used an ombre yarn for colorwork, and I think it has a quite nice look. The only thing I'm struggling with is, so I don't know how much the camera is picking up on this, so it's got things like purple and grey. I don't know what I would use as the main color. Black maybe, or maybe a cream, like a total contrast. Let me know, what would you use as the main color if you were going to use this as the contrast color in a colorwork sweater. And I have had some experience of colorwork before, and I wasn't a fan, So I made this headband, but I used 4 strands of yarn. So I was holding a strand of, I believe, DK along with a strand of silk, and just 4 balls of yarn was too much for me. But I think if I didn't hold it double, if I just did, 2 colors, I think it would be okay. So I'm willing to give colorwork another shot, see if it's for me. Okay, so then I have this marine yarn, and any really old viewers of my channel will know that this was once a cardigan. But I find I wasn't wearing a sleeveless cardigan as much as I thought I would. So I unraveled it, and I'm thinking that maybe I want to make another version of the hat I recently made on my channel, where I made the hat, scarf and gloves, because I love that hat so much, and it fits so well and it keeps my ears so warm. But sometimes I don't want to wear cream, so I think maybe I might use this to make that. I think there's more than enough. There's 135 grams here, so maybe I'll make something else with it as well, maybe a pair of gloves to match. But that's what I'm thinking of for this, unless anyone has any great ideas of what to make with 135 grams, let me know. And then I have this orange yarn, which I've been hanging on to for a long time because I love the idea of making a Halloween sweater. So I think I might keep this with the idea of making a Halloween sweater, and maybe buying some brown yarn to go with it. Yeah, so I think this is going to be a hang on, and it's going to be a purchase other things to be able to use this. So this might not be used this year, but we'll see how we go. Okay, and then in this cute little bag, I had my first rendition into sock knitting. So this is the toe. And to be honest, I'm not loving it. This gauge is really small. And I have made socks before and didn't like them, but I made them with like fluffy yarn. I was trying to make like some slipper sock type things, and I didn't like them. I felt like stepping on them. I could feel every stitch. And as I'm just pushing this yarn here, I feel like I can feel the texture. Like if I turn this inside out, you can see that the wrong side of knitting is actually really bumpy. I don't know, I find that quite uncomfortable on my foot. So I don't know if I'm going to continue with this, but I've got some sock yarn in there if I decide to go back to it. If not, I'll see how the scrappy sweater goes, and maybe I'll add these to it, because I think they go well with the colour scheme. Okay, so that is my bin empty. Those are all the projects I'm thinking of. But if we go back to this bag, which I pulled out at the beginning, so this is my bag of oddment yarn that I've accumulated over the many years I've been crocheting and knitting. So I'll just empty it out. So the majority of this is 100% acrylic. Some of this I've had for 20 years. So these were the yarns that I would buy to make some slipper socks with. I ended up making little blankets and toys and things for friends and family. This is what I've got left. So what I'm thinking, with all of these oddments of yarn that I've been hanging on to for decades, I'm going to go through my crochet Pinterest list. I'll put a screenshot, I'll put some footage on the screen showing you what's on there. So it's things like little gnomes, or we call them gonks, over here. So I could do some little gonks for Christmas, snowflakes, garlands, and just some cute little aragumi things. And I'm just going to go through this list and knit and crochet as many things as I can. I think there's some scrunchies on there too, and just do as many things as I can until December. Anything that I haven't worked up, I think I'm just going to either throw in the bin if it's so small, or donate it. But I think things like this white sparkly yarn and this red, they'd make some cute little Christmas decorations. And I have loads of blue, which I don't know why I have so much blue. I think maybe from baby knitting. Yeah, and I know this is left over from the little baby cocoon I made for a friend. Put the video for that on the screen. Yeah, so that's left over from that. So I think this all just needs to be used or can go. And then in the ideas of full transparency, I do have another few oddment things off screen, so I'll just go and grab those. Okay, so on a trip to America, I picked up 2 cones. I think this was back in 2013, so again, I've had these for over 10 years. And this is a cotton yarn. It's not very good quality. It's really got no elasticity to it, so I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with this. I'm thinking maybe some pot holders or maybe some pan dividers, but again, I'm going to try my best to use this up. If I've got any left, it's going to the charity. And then for this, again, this is something I bought when I didn't really know what I was looking for. I have no label on this. I don't really know. I'm just going to assume because of the price of it, it's cotton. But it's this really, it's thread basically. But I'm going to try and use this to make some lace. So I'm going to have a go at lace making. Again, it's a really weird colour. I don't know what I was thinking buying peach. It's not a colour I would wear. But I can see if I can maybe make some lace and then maybe bleach it white. And that might be useful to have. I can always use some lace edging on things. So I'll give that a go again by the end of the year. If I've got any left, it's going to go. And then in this silver bowl is the yarn that I use for videos. So, and there's a hoop in there for embroidery, which doesn't live in there. So in here I have from my latest video, which I haven't unraveled yet. So it's all of the swatches that I made for the folded hem tutorial. And this is the Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool, which each to their own, but this is awful. This is absolutely awful wool. I would never ever wear this. It feels so scratchy, and even using it, I thought maybe I could use it for tutorials because it's quite a decent color. I think the stitch definition was decent enough on camera for tutorials. Having to hold it as tension when it's going through the machine, my fingers really hurt and got so dry. So I'm not sure what to do with this yarn. I have heard that to soften wool, you can try washing it and then putting hair conditioner on it. Has anybody tried that? Did that work? Or has anybody got any other suggestions on how to soften up a really rustic yarn? So I could be tempted to just knit this into a giant tube and just try and wash it. I'll see, but that's an awful lot of yarn in that bag that I'll either keep for tutorials or I'll try and soften it up. This is the yarn that I do use for tutorials most of the time, again just because of the color of it. I find that it makes good definition when I'm trying to explain things, and it goes through the machine like butter. So you can see, as every project, the balls just get smaller and smaller and smaller, and eventually I'll just have to buy a new ball. But this is relatively cheap. I get it from B&M. If anyone's from the UK, they'll know what kind of store I mean. So I think it's kind of like your version of Target. It's relatively cheap and you get like 400 grams. So it's good for tutorials. And then in this little bag is just, again, some cheap, and a pom-pom apparently, some cheap acrylic DK yarn that I use for my waste yarn. So before and after every project, you need to have some waste yarn to take things on and off the machine. And these balls I actually bought for a commission back when I used to crochet things for commission. And I think these bowls are possibly over 15 years old as well, but hey, they're still useful. And I just have some little, in here I also have some little feet that I made for my machine, just for when it lives on my desk and I wanted to be able to slide it around, because those suction feet are strong. So I just have these little feet that I can put under the machine and I can slide it around for when it's not in use and it doesn't have a project on it. And then there's just some junk in the bottom there. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that whirlwind tour of my yarn stash and hopefully some insight into upcoming projects. I would love to know if you guys have any ideas. I think I asked you a couple of questions throughout the video, so please do leave your comments down below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.